Hi
Hello
everybody!
We're back
Yeah.
to give you a little update about our beautiful daughters. Labor and delivery story, or I guess my labor and delivery story, and baby Adriana's birth story. So the way I want to do it is we're going to divide the video into, today we're going to talk about just the labor and delivery and what happened and how long things lasted for, and basically the facts, and then we're gonna film another separate video of the Q&A because I posted a picture and you guys submitted some questions that you had about, I guess, the pregnancy and labor, delivery and motherhood and all of that. So we're gonna do that in a separate video just because I don't want this video to be super long. And then as a little treat we have a little vlog of the actual birth, like not, you know, not the actual birth,
not
but
up close and personal, but you'll get some good shots.
Yeah, just we were filming, you know, throughout while I was in, you know, having contractions.
Yeah,
and
actually the whole thing we filmed.
Yeah, basically the whole thing. So yeah, that's a little summary of what's to expect. So it's going to be 3 videos, and right now we're going to go into the details of what actually happened. It was my actual due date, right?
Yeah.
40 weeks, Tuesday, October 27th. And I had, as you guys know if you watched my previous video about my pregnancy updates and all that, I decided to go with midwives. And so it was my 40-week checkup, and for maybe like 2 or 3 days prior to that, I started feeling what I now know were contractions, but I didn't know if they were contractions or not, because if you're a first-time mom, you don't know really what are contractions. Like,
yeah. What did it feel like again? You mentioned.
What I was experiencing was kind of like, you know, that period pain, and obviously I'm referring to the girls. You wouldn't know what that is, luckily for you. It's like that pulling in the lower back, and like it felt like something was digging down, you know, and like pressure, and she was just getting ready to enter the world. And up to prior to that, like the week before my, I guess, 39 week, I was full-time at school, and like everybody was just freaking out, like, you're still here, what are you doing here, your water's about to break any second. And I just felt good. I felt like I didn't want to sit at home, and I would feel anxious if I was home alone. He was at work, so I kept going. So the only 2 days I missed was a Monday and then the Tuesday, which was her actual due date of school, and that's when she actually decided to slowly make her way down and out into the world. So anyways, I went for the checkup was fine, they ask you questions, whatever, and normally they don't do a physical exam. And because I felt all this like pain and, you know, pressure and all these things, at the end of my appointment I asked Nikita, which is the midwife, has like a student, what are they called, not co-op, interning.
Yeah.
Interning with her, and so she was conducting the actual appointment. And so I asked her, I'm like, do you mind just like doing a little physical exam just to check and see, you know, what's going on down there? So she calls in my actual midwife, Karen, and the intern's performing the exam first. So she does the exam, and you know, she's checking down there, and she's like, Karen, I think I'm feeling something very unusual. I think she's like 5 or 6 centimeters dilated. Or did she just say 4 or 5? 4 or 5 centimeters dilated. And in my mind, for those of you that don't know, at about 10 centimeters you start pushing. Like, you're ready to push, you're like delivering the baby right there. And so when she says 4 or 5 or 5 or 6, I can't remember, in my mind I'm like, oh my god, it's happening. Like, you know, within the next 24 hours or so, she's coming. She's like, do you mind checking, and like just to make sure that I'm right? So Karen comes in and starts doing the exam, does the exam, and says, no, Nikita, you're wrong. And I'm like, okay, I guess she's gonna say like, yeah, you're like 1 or 2. She says, she's 7 or 8 centimeters dilated. And at that point, my heart's racing. I'm like, oh my god, it's coming. Like, she's like, literally, you're like fully effaced. Is that the right word?
Yeah, I think so.
I think that means just like fully open, your cervix is ready to whatever. Oh no, she said your cervix is paper thin.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And she's like, if I break your water right now, because sometimes your water naturally doesn't break, you can go into labor and like contracting, and sometimes they just have to break your water. It's not painful, you don't really feel it. I think they use like a little needle or something.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was. It was a weird little contraption.
Yeah,
like a hook. And
hook, that's right, yeah. So anyways, so she says, do you want me to break your water? Because if I break your water now, you're gonna basically deliver in the next like 3-4 hours or something. I'm like, no, I'm not ready, I have to go home. Dimitri was still at work. You know, my hospital bag was at home and everything. I wanted to take a shower and just like feel mentally prepared. So I'm like, no, don't break it just yet. She says, okay, go home, do whatever you have to do, get your bags, come to the hospital, because I decided to deliver at the hospital, North York General, versus at home. I could have done it at home, but I just felt it was safer because, you know, first time, I didn't know what to expect.
I felt safer too.
Yeah, exactly. We both felt safer. It was just like just in case something goes wrong, everybody's there, you know, anesthesiologist and everybody's on hand. That's what we decided to do, right? She said, go home, get your bags, come to the hospital, I break your water, you're basically having this baby tonight. So first thing actually I did is I called, I think, you, and then I called Mimi, because Mimi came from London like for 2 weeks before and after my due date, because she wanted to be present for the birth. And so I call him, he answers the phone obviously, because I don't know, you want to talk about what you experienced when I called you?
Yeah, I just kind of knew I had my phone with me, and I knew that sooner or later, a few days, whether it's before on the due date or after, I was going to get a call. So I saw the call and I'm like, hold on a second. Layla doesn't really call me unless it's urgent. And so yeah, I picked up the phone and she said, yeah, so I came to the appointment and, you know, they checked me and they told me I'm 7 or 8 centimeters dilated. Yeah. So, and I'm like, okay, so let's go to the hospital. And she's like, no, you know, come home, we'll go together, we'll get ready and we'll go together. And so, you know, hung up the phone, I got into my car and came home as fast as I could.
Started driving and freaking out probably?
Yeah,
I don't know what you were experiencing.
Kind of like your heart's racing, it's unknown, right? You're just gonna go there and from the male perspective, obviously, like there's no pushing or anything, you're basically the support. I was just excited, honestly, I was excited and couldn't wait to see her and then obviously it's go through the process and eventually have a little baby.
So basically, yeah, so at this point I call Mimi, I tell her what's going on, and in my mind I'm just like trying to breathe, and you know, I was feeling the contractions, so I'm also like, I felt in tune with my body and I felt like it was okay. But then the fear part of my brain was like, listen, you're driving. Like, what if you start having like your water breaks right now and you start really delivering alone in the car driving? I actually did a little vlog on my phone because I didn't have my camera with me because I didn't think it was gonna be needed. And anyways, but you know, again, it's very, very important to keep your mind steady and calm and breathe. And so I just was like, everything is going to be okay, it's going to be exactly how I envisioned it. I wanted to take my time and shower and be prepared. It's my way of dealing with stress, I guess. You know, I wanted to, you know, blow dry my hair and put on my makeup and feel like things are normal. I know for some of you probably it's going to sound crazy, but this is my way of dealing with things. And so I came home, I was still alone. We talked on the phone again after, and he was like, what are you doing? Like, we should just go right away. I'm like, no, don't freak out. I want to just do things my way. I feel like I have enough time. I feel like, you know, I have just enough hours to do whatever I need to do and do things peacefully. That's like the most important thing for me, is just to be at peace internally, because, you know, that everything else stems from that. So that's exactly what happened. I came home, I took a shower, I did my hair, you know, I did all that. We got our bags. This is around now, I think 6 or so.
Yeah, I think so.
And I was starving. And I know, obviously, you know, it's extremely tiring process of pushing a baby out. So I'm like, I need to eat. And I wasn't about to make dinner, so I'm like, where can we go? And there's a nice sushi place around us, so I say, okay, let's go have sushi, right? And this is I'm like contracting, like I'm having contractions. They weren't really timed, but you know, they lasted maybe less than a minute or so, 30 seconds.
Yeah, less than a minute, and then I think more than 10 minutes apart.
10, 5, they were just irregular, right?
Yeah.
And that's why the midwife and everybody at the office kind of freaked out, because it's unusual being so much dilated without having like contractions that are, you know, apart like 2 minutes or 1 minute or whatever and last 60 to 90 seconds or whatever the length is. And so anyway, so we go and have sushi and we're pretending like things are normal. Like we're on the way to the hospital, we're freaking out. You'll see it in the vlog, right? I'm sitting there, we made our order, I'm sitting there like painting my nails and we're pretending like everything's okay, and we're on the way to the hospital to have a baby.
Yeah. That was actually funny because I was saying that the guy serving us the food, he had no clue like there's a person going through delivery right at that moment. And no, he's gonna come and say, hey, how can I help you? And we're like, yeah, can you know, give us some towels because water just broke and we're gonna deliver a baby right here in your sushi place. So like personally for me, and it was hard because when the contractions come, you know, her and I, Layla and I are talking, and then all of a sudden she's like, oh, her contractions. So she just stops and looks down and like kind of braces herself for the pain for 30 seconds or 40 seconds that it lasts. And I'm just watching her and I'm like, okay, well inside I'm like, let's go to the hospital, let's go, like I'm freaking out. But on the outside I'm like, okay, I think I like, you know, maybe a soup or maybe a seaweed salad. So it was a pretty crazy experience to watch Layla go through the contractions, which like I can't even imagine the pain it was, because you know, to make you stop and like brace yourself, I guess it must have been an insane amount of pain.
Yeah, so anyhow, so around 7, we make it to the hospital, we check in, we find our room, our midwife and the intern Nikita, they were already there, Karen and Nikita. And you know, we put our bags in, whatever, and then around 7:30, you wanna give her the pacifier? Around 7:30, my contractions are starting to come a little bit like longer-ish. Anyways, we had to do a little pause because she got hungry. Sometimes she goes cluster feeding, so we just fed her like half an hour ago, and now I guess she was hungry again. So just on a side note, I do breastfeed exclusively, so this is my pumped breast milk. I like to pump to freeze some for later, and also to make it a little bit flexible so I can step out of the house and Dimitri can, you know, feed her. And also I think it's good, I don't know, you can speak to that, if it helps to bond, right? Like the feeding.
Yeah, of course.
For dad to bond. So I do bottle feed and breastfeed, but like just my milk basically. Anyways, on a side note. Anyhow, so like I was saying, we got to the hospital at 7, we checked in. Around 7:30 they broke my water, and then once they break your water, you really start to contract way faster, and you basically go into like actual labor, or what is that called?
Active
labor. Yeah, that's it. Active labor. Yeah. So she told us start walking because walking helps. So I changed into like the hospital gown and we start walking around, like doing laps around, you know, the floor of the hospital. And now they started to really become like real contractions, like really painful. Where before I was able to stand and kind of do my thing, now I was like, okay, I have to like. I felt like I needed to be grounded, and I would like go right on the floor on my fours and just hold on to something. It helped to like ground me and try to breathe and go through that, and then you're okay, and then you start walking again, and you know, just wait until the next one comes. So by, was it like 9:30 or so?
I think so.
9:30 or so. The North York General, why I also like that hospital, like having the birth there, they have this kind of like a bath for laboring in there. So you're laboring in water, you're not pushing and, you know, doing that in there, but it's for the laboring process. So sorry, we just had to do a little pause. So now that she fed, she's happily sleeping. Anyhow, so once, like I said, they broke my water, contractions started coming really like regularly and really painful, and in the water it helped to take the edge off, let's just say. It wasn't like less painful or anything like that. But anyways, that part you guys will see in the video, in the vlogs that we made. Mimi was kind enough to film, and Dimitri was amazing at supporting me. He was like exactly what I needed, you know. It's so important to have the right birthing partner, and he just was like, because at that moment like everything is annoying, and so it's very important to have someone that can tune into you and like not annoy you, but like just be there in the way that you need it, and that's exactly what you were, and I'm so grateful. Thank you. It was amazing, and it was really great to have Mimi there, so thank you, Mimi. Because she, you know, was also there supporting, but also, you know, manning the camera, because you couldn't have done both.
No,
you know, you're either doing that or you're doing that. So anyway, so once I was in the whatever that bath thingy, she checked me and she's like, yeah, you're fully dilated, you're 10 centimeters, so it's time to push. And it's so scary, guys, like, because you don't know what that's like. I mean, it's at that point so painful that like I'm screaming my head up. I don't even care what I look like, camera, no camera, like doesn't matter. And I made a personal decision not to take any drugs or any epidural or anything like that. It's just, you know, it was my own, me against me, let's just say. It was very important for me to do it naturally, because I believe that your body is designed for this, you know. And back in the day, thousands of years ago, millions of years ago, women were doing this with no drugs and were just fine. Yes, sometimes you know, tragic things would happen, but it was just something that I wanted to do and challenge myself and just do it naturally. So at some point, this was like when I was already actively pushing for a while, and I was like in pain, screaming my head up. She's like, can I just give you, the midwife, a little, like, was it laughing gas or what is it called?
Yeah, nitrous oxide.
Yeah, she's like, it will just take the edge off. I'm like, no drugs! And I'm screaming my head. It just was like a principle, you know what I mean? It was the principle of I just needed to do it naturally, and I knew I could. I knew that I was capable of that. So anyways, in the water it started to become uncomfortable. I felt like I needed to be more grounded, like sit down, squat, or lie down or whatever. So we got out of the bath and we went into a squatting position, I think,
Yeah,
right?
stool.
It was like,
You got us a really short stool and you just sit on.
yeah, I was sitting
And
there.
Start pushing there.
Start pushing, and I think you were behind me, right? You were
Yeah.
like behind me, supporting me, and Karen and the midwives, they were kind of directing me when to push, when to how to breathe, and it was very, very, very important to have that kind of support because it's so much more personal in my experience. Obviously, I haven't experienced a doctor, a conventional doctor, an OBGYN, but they were there 100%, 150%, and very in tune with the way you wanted to have your experience, right? Like it was important for me. I did hypnobirthing. I'll talk more about it in the Q&A video coming up, but it's basically, hypnobirthing is just another way of saying like a meditation, guided meditation, affirmations, visualizations. So it's utilizing the power of the mind and positive thinking, and also connecting to your body and your baby to have a calm, peaceful, natural birth experience the way it's designed, right? So again, I'll talk about that more in the upcoming video in the Q&A. So anyhow, so kept pushing there and nothing was moving, I think. So she suggested that we go onto the bed, and like the way you see in movies, you're on your back and your legs are kind of like up towards you, pushed up against your chest. And I was pushing there for I think about an hour.
I think so.
About an hour on my back, just pushing. The worst pain of my life, screaming my head off. And she started crowning, I think maybe half an hour into it. So 30 or 40 minutes. At this point, I have no clue. Time doesn't exist. Like to me, it feels like an endless nightmare, truly, that would never end. Like I'm just in so much pain. And they kept telling me, she's crowning, we can see the head, it's coming, like it's moving along. And I could feel like nothing is happening. Like I'm pushing to no avail. There's no movement. Yes, okay, she's crowning, great, but nothing's going on. And what ended up happening was that she was posterior, which means that she was face forward. And right before, maybe a couple weeks prior to my due date, there's a natural store nearby, and one of the ladies that works there, we were chatting, and she ended up having a posterior baby as well, and ended up having to have an emergency C-section. So in this moment when finally nothing was going on and Karen realized that she was posterior, she told me, she's like, she's face forward, and that means you can't deliver naturally because they get stuck, right? Unless
you can, but it's much more difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or painful probably too
for
the baby.
Difficult
or whatever.
means painful.
Yeah. And anyways, so she says, okay, and in that moment I remember the story that the lady told me, and I'm like, oh my God, that's one thing I really just did not want. I wanted a natural birth experience. I didn't want a C-section. But in that moment, honestly, you're right there on the bed, your legs are spread open, you're pushing this baby out. The only thing you can truly do is just surrender to God, to universe, to whatever is supposed to happen is gonna happen. You have to have faith in that moment and just surrender. And so that's what I had to do. And so she says, I'm gonna go get an OBGYN. I'm not really sure why she wasn't able to do it or whatever. So she goes, gets the doctor comes in, sticks her hand in there, turns her around face down, I guess. Yeah, flipped her down. Her hand is still inside me. Yeah. And they were waiting for a contraction, right? Yeah. And she says, okay, we're gonna do, I think, 2 contractions or 2 pushes basically to kind of make sure that she's wedged in, out, right? Yeah. To then like, okay, she won't turn back around, right? That's, I think, was the point. Yeah. And so her hand is in there. I'm in so much pain. It's just ridiculous. Like,
there's a baby now and a human hand.
And a hand, stretching it all out. I don't even know. Like, I think right now, like, a part of my brain has a little bit of an amnesia. I don't remember exactly what the pain was like, but I know it was the most painful thing of my life. And so anyways, I'm screaming my head off, but in my mind I'm like, okay, good, at least like this is good. Like she turned her, I'm able to deliver, I don't have to have a C-section. And so once she did that, the doctor leaves, we're back to our regular thing. They bring in a mirror, which is the most weirdest thing. I don't know why they do that, and I don't know why anybody would want to see that. So they put this mirror, like, right in front of the bed, so right in front of you. And she's like, yeah, look at this, look at this beautiful experience. And I was doing the hypnobirthing, so I'm in my mind, I'm trying to connect to my body, I'm trying to like visualize everything opening and the baby coming out and everything, happening, and it was just a distraction for me to like having to see it and process what's happening. Like it was important for me to stay present in my mind and not present on the outside. So I'm like, no, I don't want to see that. Move it away, you know? So I don't remember if they moved it or not. Oh, and at this point, guys, it's kind of disgusting, but I'm peeing and pooping and throwing up and doing everything at the same time. Because when you're pushing, crazy. Like, imagine the hardest, like, you know, when you go to the bathroom and like you push really, really hard, times that by, I don't know, 100, 1,000, I don't even know. And that's how hard your whole body's contracting. But you're supposed to not just do that everywhere. You're supposed to direct that push.
Yeah, you focus the push like downwards, like you imagine it as you're pushing it down straight down and out.
Right.
And I think it's called J pushing.
Yeah, J breathing, where you're like breathing it out, right? J
breathing, and then you push in that same kind of direction. You just imagine the baby's like flowing that way, and the push is supposed to go that way.
That's right.
And then you see like your kind of whole body is contracting. And then Layla starts, sometimes once in a while she had the vomit, and I was like, wow, this is crazy. It looks like she's possessed, like, basically. I was like, I didn't know what to say. I didn't say anything. I just said good job and breathe. Like, good job, breathe, honey. Breathe, honey, and held her hand. And
I didn't give a shit at that. Sorry for my language. I really didn't care at that point. At that moment, I'm like, I don't care what's coming out of where. I just need this baby out. Because basically, if she wasn't posterior, I would have delivered maybe under an hour for sure. 30 minutes to 60 minutes would have for sure would have happened. So anyhow, once they turn her and I push and I push and I push, I don't know, I think maybe 20-30 minutes later.
Yeah, it's off.
This was around 12 midnight already. 12:13 she was finally born, and let me tell you, it is the most amazing moment when that final push comes out, or the push happens and she like flows out of you. Oh my god, I can't describe in words the amount of relief that you feel. Release and relief that you feel, and at the same time I was just tripping out. Like when I looked down and I saw this baby, like it looked like an alien, because you know she's obviously still connected to you through the umbilical cord, and
her head is squished.
Her head is all deformed,
squished and like
obviously.
really deformed. It could not. It comes out sometimes really, really weird. Because
obviously your birth canal is like what, 2-3 inches maybe at the most. So imagine this. I mean, she wasn't this big, but regardless, a big human baby trying to push itself through this tiny little canal, right? So.
Oh, but don't skip the ring of fire. You have to tell them that.
That's right.
Because that's the most painful. Right.
This was before they turned her? I can't remember.
Yeah. So after they turned her.
After they turned her.
Right. The point that happens is that you're gonna tell them, or you're gonna tell them.
I'll tell them, and then you can tell from your experience. So basically, it's like stretched out to its full capacity, I think, and. You know, her head is there, everything is stretched out, and I am screaming at this point, swearing, I didn't care. It's on fire! It feels like it's on fire! I can't do this anymore! And Karen,
she's like, that's good.
And she's like, oh yeah, it's called a ring of fire. I'm like, it's a ring of fire, right? It's like burning. Yeah. It was insane. It was funny now, but at the moment it was not funny, because it really felt like a nightmare that was not gonna end. Like I felt like it wasn't stopping. It just kept going, and I kept telling, like, I can't do this anymore. I literally, like, physically, I think I exhausted. Like, anymore, I probably would have passed out from exhaustion, because imagine pushing nonstop for an hour and a half or however long it was, I don't know. Still, this is pretty good for a first time birth. I realized that. But physically, it's exhausting. So, anyhow.
Because you don't, like, you don't know what time it is. She could have been pushing for 2 hours, 3 hours,
I had no idea.
10 minutes, and it would have been all the same.
You have no concept of time, really, at that moment. It just feels crazy.
So the way that a ring of fire actually works is that it's the stretching because of the circumference of her head, and it's the widest point of her head is pushing through, and that causes that pain of the. And they call it the ring of fire. So like once you pass that, you're basically the head's out, painful. And then you just have to like wiggle the shoulders out. But that's the point where the circumference is the largest, and so it's called the ring of fire.
Right. So once that happened, I think they were able to like kind of squeeze her out.
Yeah.
Right? Once the head pops out.
It's so weird. Remember when they were like actually like kind of pushing on her head?
Yeah. She was like pushing on her head, like reforming her head to like. I don't know. Whatever.
To try to get it out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's crazy.
It was weird. Like they were pushing. It literally like they were pushing on her head.
On her brain. It's good I didn't see that, because I would have freaked out.
It just looked so weird. But they were kind of like putting their hands in and like just
Oh.
under the skin and pulling, kind of pulling, but like
Yeah.
kind of holding, bringing it in and putting like not Vaseline,
Some cream or something.
some cream to make it to make it slippery so the baby can come out easier.
Oh my gosh. Anyways, so at 12:13 a.m. October 28th, this little angel of ours was born.
Wow.
And like I was saying, it was the most intense, insane, crazy, miraculous, trippy experience of my life. Like I've started talking about it before, you know, when I saw her all naked, and it just, and then, you know, I wanted to have like skin on skin right away because it's the most comforting for the baby and for obviously the mother to try to connect to the new baby, and for the milk to start coming. It helps. The skin to skin is really, really helpful. So they put her on my chest, and I'm covered in vomit and poop, and not poop here, but whatever, vomit and sweat and tears, everything. And I'm shaking. I'm like, oh my god, it's a real baby. Like, because I don't know, it's just something.
You're in shock.
You're in shock, and it's like
you're
this.
in shock.
You were carrying this baby, and you were imagining it, but then it's a real person, like in your hands, a real human being, breathing, crying. Like, it's just the most insane experience. So it took a couple minutes for me to like calm down and then like to like, I don't know, to understand what's happening, to process things. And she stopped crying. She cried for about a minute, not even, and she stopped, and she just was like looking at me, and then I gave her my breast right away, and she started like right away latched on and started drinking I guess the colostrum, which is the pre-milk substance, I guess, that comes for 3 days before the milk starts to come in. And so anyways, so that's the whole story, I guess, in a very short nutshell. But yeah, what can I say? I mean, if I could give any advice, would be to anybody who is either thinking of getting pregnant or is pregnant right now, look into hypnobirthing, and definitely go with midwives if you have the option. Whether at home or at the hospital is up to you, but definitely having that personal, connected experience was, like, I think what made the most difference for us.
And most importantly, like, you want to feel comfortable. This whole process is going to be the most trying, difficult process that you're going to go through in your lifetime. So you want to feel comfortable. You want to feel comfortable with who's going to be in the room. You want to feel comfortable with the way you're actually going to give birth. So, you know, for us, we felt comfortable with the midwife. We felt comfortable with going with a natural birth without drugs, because we want to make that connection with the baby and like really feel what's going on. And actually, I remember one thing, that while she was coming out, every few minutes they're checking her heart rate, and her heart rate never really got up really high because she was never under stress. And it's that connection that you make, because you know, like, the baby isn't stressed. She knows she's coming out. Something's happening that's different, but I don't have to freak out, because, you know, I feel the connection with mom, and mom feels the connection with me. And so it was a beautiful thing to watch. But just the fact that she wasn't stressed out, baby wasn't stressed out during the whole process, like, I hands down say, okay, you have to go with like hypnobirthing, natural and hypnobirthing, and just feel. I know it's extremely painful, and like, honestly, like, I can't handle that pain. There's no way. It doesn't matter what you say to me. You know what I mean? Like, I was saying to Layla, like, one time my foot spasmed, and that was probably the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. And I'm like, if it's worse than that, then that's no thank you. I can't handle more than that. So, I want to say something else.
Just to the point of going with the midwives and the natural birth, right?
Yeah, that's right. So just feeling that connection, I think, will make it
make all the difference.
Make all the difference. Make it a different experience, right? Of course, everyone's experience is going to be different. Like, I have friends that were laboring for 24 hours, and then they had to take the baby out in different means and surgical means, because it's just too much stress on the baby,
the safest way at that point, right?
If you can, obviously go with natural birth, but, you know, the circumstances are different for every person, and this is how it happened for us, and we're really grateful that it happened this way. And now we have our special, beautiful angel here, and it's the best thing you can ever do, the best experience in my life. This is it,
hands down.
Yeah.
So I guess that concludes the actual labor and delivery story. Now we're gonna film the Q&A, and that will go up whenever after. I think we covered everything, right? We talked about the whole experience. Oh, but the best part was I didn't have any tears, and I think, like, in the long run, it was when she was stuck in there being posterior, it was very painful and very exhausting, but also helped in a way, because she helped to stretch everything out. first time moms, like I think, I don't know, 95% of the time or something crazy like that.
Yeah, high percentage.
High percentage, you get tears and then you have to have stitches done. And I didn't have to do that only because she was there stuck for a while, stretched out. And so I think Karen said I had like very, very small tears that didn't require stitches, which obviously helped in the recovery process because, you know, it's still painful, it still takes a while, but imagine having stitches there too, it would take a lot longer and be a lot more painful. So that's just another point I wanted to make. I just remembered before we sign off. Thanks for watching, guys.
Yeah.
Baby
Thank
Adriana
you.
says bye.
Bye.
We'll see you in the next video.